so maybe I'm biased. But the facts don't lie.
I've mentioned this before, but I've been playing video games for literally as long as I can remember. Well, almost. My very first concrete memory is from when I was a couple of weeks old. No, really. I've mentioned this before as well, actually, but it's true. Feel free to disbelieve that if you so choose, because I'm sure somebody will, but anyhow. The first time I played a video game was either my birthday or Christmas of my second year of life. I actually saw it recently on Twitter, the exact thing, recently, a few months ago now. Anyway, probably something that stuck with me because it was a novel experience. I know a lot of people talk about how they don't really remember anything before the age of about 5 or 6, but yeah, there we go. The point is, I've been playing video games for, effectively, my entire life. More than 4 decades. A span of time that extends beyond the lifespan of a lot of people. About half the planet, actually. More than half of all people alive today are aged 30 or below. So, let's make sure we really put all of this into perspective. In fact, I've been playing video games for so long, it extends beyond the lifespan of many people who espouse that they are lifelong gamers. In fact, how many times am I going to say in fact? I've encountered a curious amount of people who considered themselves lifelong gamers when they were still teenagers and hadn't even played their first game until their teen years. Like an 18-year-old calling themselves a lifelong gamer when they started at 15. Not that I mean to dismiss their passion for the medium, just saying. When I say lifelong, I mean literally my entire life, near as damn it. Anywho, the real point is that I've been playing games for a long-ass time. And I have seen a hell of a lot of changes in that time. Like, a hell of a lot. If I remember, I'll pop some random footage up of what games are like when I was a kid, when I was like an actual child, just to help illustrate even further. Because it really tickles me when I see all of those, you may be old, but are you this old kind of thing. I did one once, and it was something from like 6 months ago, because I just find, it's like, are you old? Like, you may be old, but are you 20? Huh? Anyway, because, like my little side point earlier, I also see a lot of childhood nostalgia for stuff that happened when I was a full-blown adult. Already a parent even, in an increasing percentage of those instances. Which, again, is not to dismiss others' experiences, it's just, well, just.
Wait till I get going! Where was I?
I saw my first anime, to the best of my knowledge, at the age of 8. The first one I can remember, anyway. I didn't know it was an anime at the time. I didn't even know what anime was. And it wasn't until I was a teenager that I rediscovered the OVA, and I've never actually watched it from start to finish. I don't think I've seen most of it, in fact. I've seen about half of it. But I was just getting into anime at the time, and I was looking for more stuff to watch. Some of it being new, others just being whatever I could find, and in fact, there were several others, there's that in fact again, I'd seen as well. When I started watching, I'd already seen others before I knew what anime was. But the first one when I was 8, Venus Wars, if you're wondering. It was bought as a birthday present for a friend, and it was playing during his party. I seemed to be the only one paying attention, as best I can recall, but there were other things going on, party and all, so I wasn't able to really follow it properly. So I guess I've also been watching anime longer than most lifelong anime geeks have been alive too. That's a whole other story and isn't relevant right now. So no tangents within tangents. For now, at least. For that small cadre of diehards who follow everything I upload, you might have noticed that I already did something like this a few years back. I wrote a couple years ago in the script, but I finished this script like 8 months ago. Anyway, I've done this before, but that was more of an off-the-cuff, unscripted musing about where things were at the time. I'd been seeing a lot of videos, both suggested and things I actually clicked through to, about how gaming, it just ain't good anymore. But older titles, yeah, that's the good shit. They just don't make them like they used to. The gamer equivalent of this would never be made today, I suppose, which is flat wrong. It's been a constant refrain throughout my entire life, and it's never been accurate. Just look at anime. Yes, I was relevant. Look at the classics, specifically from the 80s. At the time, things like Robotech were seen as the death of the medium. All that mecha shit was killing real anime. Slice of Life did the same thing in the early 2000s, Isekai, Shonen, whatever you want. Or should I say, whatever is popular at the time, if you don't like it. Hell, how about a contemporary example? Look at all this cape shit. Marvel have done irreparable damage to the entire cinema industry. We all agree on that, right? If the things you like aren't being made anymore, what you actually mean is that your taste, is no longer the driving force. You are no longer the core demographic. And this is truer of video games than perhaps any other medium could ever attain. The sheer scale of the video game industry and the ludicrously low barrier to entry means that literally any niche you could imagine, it's being catered to on a level not seen since. Maybe what you want is harder to find, and let's be honest, the mainstream was never catering to you. It has never, and will never, intend to create anything for any one person. Big companies across all industries have one goal, and one goal only. Businesses are in the business of making money. Whoa. Positively mind-blowing, I know. And apparently not as obvious as you might think, judging by the way some people talk about things. Sorry if you can hear the dog. He does this a lot. I'm just going to leave it. I am not so conceited as to claim I understand the thought process of anyone other than myself. So I'm not going to state definitively. Shut up! I'm not going to state definitively, but it sure seems to me that a lot of people have a very self-focused view of the world, navel-gazing at its finest. They really do talk and act like they think thing is made specifically for them. I'm sure you've seen this with teenagers about music. Oh, would you look at this? Like how tweens and young teens form their entire personality around some musician or other, because the lyrics speak directly to their lived experience. You know what I mean? It's easier for me, I'm guessing, to avoid falling into that trap, because, frankly, nothing has ever fit exactly into what I want. Even the books I wrote myself, yeah, I write books by the way, didn't come out precisely the way I wanted them to. Even these scripts, that's why I go off script sometimes, because something else occurs to me as I'm recording voiceover. It's just an inevitable side effect of the creative process as far as I'm concerned. Things will drift and change as you progress. An idea could be the best piece of solid awesome you've ever imagined, but it just doesn't fit in with the way things are going. And in an ideal world, you'll take that concept and expand it into something new, but where was I? Ah yes, Dead or Alive, You're Coming With Me. I first watched RoboCop in December of 1988, also at the age of 8, appropriately enough. Clearly, the very best age to be watching one of the most brutally violent films ever made. But you know, as flippant as that statement may be, it's also surprisingly apropos. Because I didn't have nearly as many preconceptions about film as the intended audience. So when I was watching the movie and I saw the in-movie commercial for things like the 6000 SUX, my immediate thought was, yes, the 6000 sucks. Leaving me a little confused when other older, supposedly more familiar with film language people kept trying to correct me. But dude, it's right there. The 6000 sucks. I wasn't worldly wise enough to fully grasp the idea of satire, but I was bright enough to know that it was taking the piss. Which may seem like the same thing, but there are some subtleties to the distinction.
I understood that reference.
It was years later, though, before I came to fully appreciate all the symbolism and allegory, like walking on water, at the end when he's fighting with Clarence. And a large number of things were pointed out to me rather than me picking up on them myself. Some things are more obvious than others, of course, and some things require quite oblique knowledge of more esoteric topics to even realize they have deeper meaning. There's no shame in missing something because you literally don't know. Like, there was a question once on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the British show. I know it's been in other countries, but I mean specifically on the British one. When someone's getting real close to the end, it was either the first or second to last. As in, it was either like not the last one, it was either the one before that or the one before that. The question was, what is the name of the computer in Alien? Now, I've seen that film more than 1,000 times, literally. So it could be a $1 question as far as relative familiarity is concerned. To me, it's a really simple question. But not everyone is as familiar with those films as I am. Even some committed Alien fans aren't going to know the first film as well as I do. It's a relative thing. Of course the answer is easy, when you already know what the answer is. It's Mother, by the way. The computer is called Mother. Aboard the Starship Nostromo, and the escape pod at the end is the Narcissus. In case you ever needed to know. Now you know. So, seeing people still seeming to miss the point that Starship Troopers is a parody doesn't really surprise me too much. The bit where Doogie Howser is literally dressed like a fucking SS officer, like literally that's his outfit, it's really hard to ignore, but, some people just want to watch a fun, dumb action film about shooting giant bugs. However, when you do point these things out, it's generally hard not to see and understand, right? I know there are those people online who like to argue the point, specifically the bit about brain bugs. How can the bugs be the good guys when they literally eat brains? I'm willing to give benefit of doubt and assume that most people saying that are just being deliberately obtuse, but for anyone wondering, just because the humans are literally a fascist dictatorship, just because they are literally bad guys, it doesn't have to mean they are the bad guys. You are a bad guy, but that does not mean you are a bad guy. Even if everything was a false flag operation, and the humans are the actual aggressors, even if the arachnids are mostly retaliating, all that means is they didn't start the fire. America and the British both did terrible things during the Revolutionary War. That's the nature of war. A noble cause does not inherently make everything you do come up smelling of roses. Basically, there's no such thing as bad guys and good guys. There are just people. And people, individuals, groups, species, are capable of doing both, depending on circumstances. Even the best of us can do despicable things if the stars align just right.
Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something.
So, we know they're satire. We can see that, and understand that there's more going on beneath the surface. Reevaluate it now. See what people missed at the time, and hold that thought because first I need to ask something. There's an important point here that seems to never be addressed by, well, ever, so far as I can tell. Let's assume you're around my age, that you saw Robocop or Starship Troopers when they were new. Be honest, at the time, that first time around, and multiple times after, at that age, at that time, did you know it was satire then? Did you pick up on all of the thematic nuance and symbolism? Really? Even the really obvious stuff, like I mentioned above? Maybe some of it. Probably even. You probably did get some of it. But did you really get it? Or did you just watch a cool action film about a robot man shooting criminals in the dick? And let's apply that to right now. Even if you are the kind of person who specifically goes looking for these kinds of things, do you get it now? With something released yesterday, does it all just immediately click into place? Can you even be sure the details you do notice are actually there? We're seeing this happening in real time right now, because we always are. Well, we're always seeing it, actually. I really need to read these ahead before I start talking. Well, we're always seeing it, actually, but an example that I already gave. Did you notice that throughout all his appearances, Tony Stark rubs his arm? Did you realize that was something that was consistently, deliberately put into the films because he still had some lingering pain, numbness, or whatever, from the shrapnel injury to his heart? Now, I'm not saying that the MCU is especially deep, but at the same time, to deny it has any depth at all is just plain sophistry. Revisionism is a real, persistent phenomenon. And whilst it's often born simply from people wanting to stand out and be the first one to understand, there's also the fact that art is a collaborative, collective experience, both in consumption and production. So there's never going to be just one person who understands and dictates everything. More so, there's never going to be just one cast iron, hard truth about what something means. I've spoken about this before at length, both in these essays and in my personal life. I'm autistic, I can go off on wild tangents without needing to script it. Once a piece of art is available to the public, once it's out there, the creator loses any sense of control. It's a difficult, nigh impossible reality to accept for some people, for many people, but it is true. It is fact. As a writer, filmmaker, or whatever, you have final say over what you intended your message to be, where you were going with it, how you meant for it to be interpreted. And you can spend as much time as you want, knock yourself out, educating people on that, on your meaning. But that doesn't mean you achieved your end goal. Further, that doesn't even mean that's what you actually intended at all. The Matrix is a superb case study of this very phenomenon, but that's a story for another time, because there's one more element, one that is far more important and is the actual crux of my thesis. The thing that all of this preamble has been leading up to. Because you see, just as hints of depth do not inherently equate to something being deep, an apparent lack of depth does not mean that there is none to be found. Because see, that's the whole point of satire. It's not supposed to be obvious. It's not supposed to be right there, waggling a dog's nutsack directly in your face. If it was, it wouldn't be satire, it would be parody. And if it was that obvious, everyone still wouldn't get it, because some people just don't care. Looking back on the games I've played over the last year, the first thing that jumps out at me is that it's roughly a 50-50 split between old and new. It's more like a 60-40 now because several months have gone by. Well, actually, the first thing is that half the games I've played have been made by Square Enix. That still holds true as it happens. The second is that there's a mixture, although the specific breakdown does have a touch of nuance. After all, at the moment, I'm finally playing through Final Fantasy 15. I dropped it actually, but I'm on a different Square Enix game. I'm playing Front Mission. A game that I personally consider to still be recent. Final Fantasy 15, I mean, Front Mission's quite an old one now. Older, but not old. Do you know what I mean? And some of the others could fall into a similar grey area, but for the sake of argument, we'll say it's half and half. Obviously, I'm enjoying the older games far more than the new ones, because new games all suck. And any old games, old from like a decade ago, only those ones are good. Unless there's a chance of a remake, then it was good, but now it would benefit from an upgrade. But that's a whole other story. Foreshadowing. Anyway, everyone knows that. It's just an absolute truth of the universe, an axiom that never changes. But only media from when I was a teenager. That's undeniably the best time for everything, ever. Stuff before that was good too, but they weren't quite there yet. Were they? Right? Well, I mean, this even older thing, yeah, okay, that one is a timeless classic. It was the prototype for everything that came after it. It still had a few rough edges, but we have to appreciate just how important and formative it was. I mean, we all know that is true, because person who was a teenager when that thing came out, they told me it was great. And I like person. They know what they're talking about. They must be right. I didn't realise before, but I get it now. But things. Everything new sucks. Strawman? Well, yeah, I'm exaggerating for dramatic effect. I do that sometimes. But tell me, again, honestly, am I off base here? Is there really nothing to this? Do you really, sincerely, truly, madly, deeply believe that literally everything just sucks now? Apart from, of course, those very rare exceptions that someone you like and trust told you was great. More importantly, do you really believe that this is something that is only happening now? Like, just maybe, the older media people are recommending, maybe, that was always good. And just maybe there was a whole lot of other shit at the time that was, you know, shit. And you just don't hear about it. Selection bias, people.
Oh.
A couple of years ago, I published a video essay about Final Fantasy VIII. It remains my most viewed video to this day by quite a healthy margin, at least by my standards. From the first time I played it, it stuck with me in a way that most games simply don't. It was always right up there as being a watershed moment in my life. Always my favourite of the franchise, even to this day. Interestingly enough, 8 and 16 are the only Final Fantasy games I bought on launch. Granted, the latter being on PC launch day, because it was exclusive to the PlayStation for like a year or whatever it was, because it's the PC version I wanted. I just thought that was an interesting coincidence. Anyway, seeing people in more recent years talking about the fondness for 8 has been quite comforting. It's been good to find people that agreed with me, knowing I wasn't the only one. I was right there for it, for a while, until it started to become a more popular position, or at least a more popular issue to discuss. It might not seem like much, but there's been a shift in the discourse. It's no longer being driven by people who always loved the game, just wanting to share their joy. It's almost universally shifted to a "this was good actually" re-evaluation model, and it pisses me off. Truth be told, it always did. What I just said was a bald-faced fucking lie. It always kind of bugged me. It was nice to come across people that genuinely appreciated it, but it always felt kind of performative to me, to be honest. It's great that more people are enjoying the game now, sure, but it's absolutely infuriating to see how easily led some of them are. How the game is a misunderstood masterpiece now because someone else spoke up about it, finally. There is a reason religious folk love that sentiment of how the Lord is their shepherd. Because people really are fucking sheep. Herd animals. Human beings are communal animals. Working communes, in groups. Human beings are herd animals. And herd animals follow the flock so that they don't stand out and don't have to fear struggling to survive on their own. It's a very large part of how the species quite literally survived and even thrived. Cooperation is what has allowed us to make video games, to make cities, to make our species what it now is. So, it's not a bad thing in and of itself, just rather irritating when applied to stuff that simply does not matter. Like video games. As much as I love them, be honest, in the grand scheme of things, they really are not important. Very few things are, really. So getting worked up about them to the extent of, let's move on. My point is that things are not so black and white. A game wasn't always bad or always good. You just changed your position on it, based on new information, altered life experience or whatever. The real problem is that, as much as I don't want to stay on the subject, the problem is that people are easily led. No matter how fervently you may proclaim, how sincerely you believe, you are never going to be a true free thinker. Your thoughts will be affected by those around you.
Well, sorry. We thought you were dead.
I was. I'm better now.
And do you want to know something else? That's absolutely A-okay. It really is okay to be influenced by someone else. Just try, really, to resist letting another person dictate your thoughts. That's what really bugs me about the shift with Final Fantasy VIII. It's clearly become a trend at this point. A contrarian stance to be part of the cool, uncool kids. You know what I mean? I suppose I'm not making much sense and I'm largely talking in circles, but that's how things be sometimes. There's always a middle ground, as I like to say. There is always nuance. Like, actual nuance. Not the I speak at length and if you disagree you're a Nazi kind of nuance. There's a third option. So, are old games really better than new games? It's such a head-ass question. You simply cannot take an entire swathe of data like that and directly pit one against another. Imagine if we were asking if new houses are better than old ones. It ignores so much of the fine detail. Are brick and mortar houses structurally more solid than wooden houses? Sure. They generally win out on that metric. But wood is cheaper and easier to procure. It's also self-sustaining. It's self-replenishing. While cement is easier to replace, because you can just put more over the top, but wood is better insulation on its own. You see what I'm getting at? There are different metrics for differing aspects of the thing. And that's before we even get into individual houses. Or games, as the case is here. Like, a few years back, I did a comparison between two Star Wars games, Jedi Survivor and Jedi Academy, with the latter clearly coming out on top as the superior game, for combat depth, in my opinion, based on how I prefer to play games. It's just, I keep coming back to the same thing in pretty much every script I write. All of this is just me. It's all about where I stand on a given topic. I'm not trying to convince you I'm right. No, really, I'm not. Because it just does not work that way. Everything I put to paper, metaphorically speaking, is an expression of where I stand, with more context as to why I feel this way, because that, ultimately, should be all that really matters for the individual. So if you stand firm that old games are better, I guess, so be it. You're fully allowed to do that. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. But I will caution, all those new games that you may be ragging on, give it a few years, lol, and they won't be new anymore. So what happens then? Did the now no longer new games suddenly become better? Did you miss out on a great game at the time because you were convinced they were all shit? Is it still shit? And you're glad you didn't waste your money? Because, again, let's go back to the real crux of this entire thing. Games were always good, and games were always bad. I cannot stress this enough. The must-play classics, yeah? They stood the test of time because they were always good. The hidden gems, they were always good too. But they had, and still have, some rough edges that make them difficult to commit to, maybe. And game was always crap. But not the fun, interesting kind of bad. That's why you've never heard of it. Like a lot of bad games, people just don't talk about them. We just move on. The Room is not the worst movie ever made. It's just bad in an engaging way. It's easy to make fun of. Night of Terror? That's just boring. And that's why you've never heard of it. Unless you have, because there's always going to be that one person that knows this really obscure thing.
Can you dig it?
So what's the real takeaway? Well, I've said it a few times already. There have always been good games. There have always been bad games. Some of them are re-evaluated later, when divorced from what other people were saying, and some don't hold up as well as you thought. And that's fine. Just like what you like, bruh. What it really all comes down to is that people, most people, don't form their own opinions about anything. Human beings are social, tribal animals, separating and segmenting off into little groups of apparently like-minded individuals, with a few powerful voices swaying the consensus, sometimes by design, with intention, but usually, well, there's this adage, which I don't really hear anymore. But essentially, when you get a group, any group, to calculate the overall intelligence, the IQ, of that group, you take the score of the dumbest person there, and then divide it by the number of people involved. We all like to think that we're immune to peer pressure, that we stand alone as that one shining bastion of individuality. But it just is not true. Even when it's true, it's still not really. The desire to belong, the need to be accepted, is a powerful, insidious narcotic. And it takes a lot to realize when you've been influenced, because it doesn't happen all at once. It's little things, rubbing up against your standards, slowly poking and eroding them away. When people come together, new dynamics develop and internal standards shift. It starts small, an off-colour joke that leads to something more overtly nihilistic, or an irate reaction to some minor infraction that balloons into outright hatred. And when I say slowly, I don't mean like galactic scale. These things can grow and fester a lot faster than pretty much anyone is willing to admit. So if you're part of a community that leans in one direction, i.e. new games suck, that they've changed in some way, you'll have a few poster children to point to, that everyone can agree on to a mostly objective degree. And maybe a few others that have some real shit but are mostly redeemed. But the more you think about it, the less you're willing to accept the positives. They just, they ruin the good stuff. Like a few black spots on a banana or something. And before long, it's just a given that new games are all shit. Nothing good ever comes out. And old games, they're all amazing. People keep recommending banger after banger after banger. Or at least, the bad ones are really fun bad. Because again, they're genuinely shit. The forgettable things with no redeeming value. Well, they're forgettable. So are old games better than new games? Have games really changed? Oh yeah, of course they have. The graphics have improved significantly. The size of a lot of them. Technically, sure. Amount of story content has increased significantly as well in some cases. Much too much in some cases. But really, it depends on the game. There's always a middle ground. There's a third option. It's just easier to make grand, sweeping statements. So, well...
Remember what I told you.
Don't be a cunt.
Like what you like. Play what you want to play. Fuck what anyone else thinks. If they recommend a game and you think it looks like your kind of thing, just play it. New or old. Or don't. For fuck's sake, please, just think for yourself. Like, actually for yourself. Not that cool idea no one else likes just because it's different. It's okay to agree with the consensus. Just make the decision on your own. There's nothing wrong with going with the group. And there's nothing wrong with going against it either. Just do you, bruh. Just do you. Go play some games. New, old, both. You decide. It's just how it is. Some things are good, some things are bad. You might not appreciate it at the time. You might be misinformed about it. Like when I first saw trailers for Spec Ops, I saw it as being this stupid, bombastic action game, and it wasn't until I saw people talking about how that was a deliberate thing, and then I explained that to somebody else, and then they started to appreciate it as well, and now it's a favourite of mine. It was always good. And it was always intentionally advertised to look bad. And some of the gameplay choices, yeah, it doesn't work very well, but that's the point. And it's fine if you can't get past that. Some games are good, some games are bad. They always were, always are, always will be. And you might just change where you stand on that. I really want to get back into doing this on a more regular basis. I've had a lot going on in my life, but it's good to finally get all this out. If you want to continue the conversation, there's the, do all the usual comments and what have you. I also have a Discord server now. It's largely just for hanging out and chatting, but I will make updates as things move on. I wish that dog would shut up. Perfect time for me to call this to an end. So yeah, Discord server, it's in the comments down below. Well, it's in the whatever. You can leave comments of your own, and all that remains to say now is thank you for watching. Dog, please shut up. He's called Roxas, by the way.
Take him out!